History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of Oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to this 587th episode of the History Goes Bump podcast. Ghost Tours for the Theater of the Mind. I am your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, on this episode, we're doing a location that was suggested by our friend Derrick Hughes. This is in Salt Lake City, the McCune Mansion. This is a really cool looking house.
I saw the pictures that he posted. Yeah, it's really amazing looking.
And it has a couple of ghosts hanging out, so we look forward to bringing that to you. Before we get into that, we want to welcome into the Spooktacular crew, Tina, Adriana, and Jennifer.
Thank you so much for joining our Facebook group.
And now this moment in Oddity.
Shipwrecks can be a fascinating place to explore for divers. They can become amazing reefs, teeming with sea life, creating their own unique ecosystem. But when a shipwreck occurs in the coldest ocean region of the world, the effects of time can sometimes surprise you. In February of 2022, a large-scale international scientific expedition set out from Cape Town, Africa. The journey would take the scientists to Antarctica in pursuit of finding the Endurance. The Endurance was a three-masted barkentine ship owned by Sir Ernest Shackleton. The vessel was built for navigating through pack ice conditions and was to be used from 1914 to 1917. The journey that Shackleton sought to accomplish was to travel across Antarctica from the Atlantic to Pacific Oceans. In 1915, the Endurance became trapped in ice and was ultimately crushed in the Weddell Sea. Despite the tragedy of losing the ship, all 28 crew members survived. 107 years later, scientists set out to locate the wreckage. Underwater robots, helicopters, and advanced technology were used. At the time of the sinking, the ship's captain, Frank Worsley, used a sextant and theodolite to identify the spot where the ship went down, and the captain recorded it in his journal. This provided the scientists a good starting point to focus their search. When the wreckage of the Endurance was found, the ship was in amazing condition. The vessel was found upright and not buried or overturned as expected, and the ship was well preserved. The name Endurance was still legible on many parts of the ship, including the stern, railings, steering wheel, ropes, and some of the ship's original supplies. Although some sea life had called the wreckage of the Endurance home, the fact that it was found so well preserved certainly is odd.
Horror is like a serpent, always shedding its skin, always changing. Stephen King.
And now this month in history.
In the month of May, on the 17th in 1875, the first Kentucky Derby was held at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. At the time, the racing location was known as the Louisville Jockey Club. The inaugural event took place in front of an estimated 10,000 spectators. The distance run was 1.5 miles, and the field of 15 horses consisted of 3-year-olds. Of the 15 jockeys, 13 were African American, and the winning jockey was Oliver Lewis. His mount, a 3-year-old chestnut colt named Aristides, was trained by future Hall of Famer Ansel Williamson. Aristides' portion of the $3,050 purse was $2,850, with $200 going to the second-place winner, Volcano. The Kentucky Derby is the oldest continuously held horse race in the United States. It became the third race added to what is now known as the Triple Crown. The order of the races are as follows. The Kentucky Derby is the first race, with the Preakness Stakes being run 2 weeks later, and finally the Belmont Stakes 3 weeks after that. The Kentucky Derby has become a celebrated American tradition, known for its rich history, exciting races, outrageous hats, and of course, its signature drink, the mint julep. and maybe just a little bit of gambling, which we partook in this year.
Yes, we did. The McCune Mansion sits perched atop a hill on Main Street in Salt Lake City, Utah. This splendid Victorian is unique both outside and inside. The interior features exotic materials from around the world. The home has not only been privately owned, but served as a dance studio, art gallery, office space, and now wedding venue. And what would a Victorian mansion be without some ghost stories? Join us as we share the history and hauntings of the McCune Mansion.
Mormon pioneers founded Salt Lake City in 1847. The religious group was seeking religious freedom, and Brigham Young found that for them in the West. The city would serve as territorial capital and then the state capital of Utah. But long before that, the Shoshone, Goshute, Ute, and Paiute set up their seasonal camps in the valley near the Great Salt Lake that the Goshute called Piapah, meaning big water. The land was never considered owned by any indigenous groups, so none of them received anything when settlers arrived. So even though they'd been here for all these years, usually we were buying the territory from them. Nope, that didn't happen here. About a year before the Mormon pioneers arrived, the Donner Party passed through the valley. Good thing they missed them, huh? Don't want them coming through and saying, hey, what's for lunch?
You are terrible.
Sorry. Those first years weren't easy for the Latter-day Saints, but things got far better with the California gold rush. Many people came to the town on their way to seeking their fortunes. Here in Salt Lake City, they bought farm goods and livestock along with clothing and supplies. The city would later experience tensions between the LDS and the United States government and non-LDS residents. Those would ease in the early 1900s, but the Great Depression and World Wars would also take a toll. After the wars, Salt Lake City grew rapidly. Today, the city is not only the capital of a major religion, but a successful secular metropolis.
Alfred W. McCune was born in 1849 in Calcutta, India, at the British Fort William. His father was a member of the British Army, and he and his wife would have 7 sons and 1 daughter, all born at the fort. Unfortunately, 3 of the boys and their daughter would all die as children. In 1851, the McCunes invited 2 sailors to a church meeting in their home, and by the time the sailors left, the McCune family had converted from Plymouth Brethren Christians to Mormonism. After that, Alfred's parents became Mormon missionaries. The McCunes emigrated to New York City in 1857. The family then proceeded to Chicago via train and then by wagon to Salt Lake City. McCune's father added 2 more wives to the family and had another 15 children.
And reading that they went to Salt Lake City by wagon, as I was doing the research for this, I came across a little, fun fact for those people who haven't been to Salt Lake City. I believe the roads are still quite large there, and people have asked, why are the roads so big in Utah? It's because when Brigham Young laid them out, he made them big enough so that a wagon could turn around on them.
Oh.
Alfred was a hard worker and started as a stock herder and then moved on to being a laborer for the Union Pacific Railroad. It was through the railroad that Alfred began to build his wealth. As the Utah Southern Railroad was building a rail line through the southern part of Utah, Alfred supplied the workers with provisions. They got to eat, right?
Absolutely.
He partnered with 2 other men and they built the Utah Southern Railroad Extension, and they founded a general store in the town of Milton. By 1881, McCune had also opened a huge cattle and horse ranch in southern Utah. In 1872, he married Elizabeth Claridge, whose family had emigrated to the U.S. in 1853, so they had a very similar story. The couple would have 9 children. McCune's interest in the railroads and general stores extended into Montana and Oregon, and the family moved to Montana in 1885. In 1888, they moved to Salt Lake City, and McCune purchased interest in the streetcar system. Under his guidance, the streetcar went from mule-drawn to electric. But he wasn't done there. Eventually, he took over the Salt Lake Herald and then became a part owner of the Utah Power Company. His expertise in the railroad would lead him to build railroads and mines in Peru through the latter part of his life with partners like J.P. Morgan, William Randolph Hearst, and Frederick Vanderbilt. So this was a really successful man who came from humble beginnings. You think
Yeah,
his
no kidding.
family are missionaries, Mormon missionaries. They come over here, and then he's just working as a stock guy, with cattle and stuff like that. And next thing you know, he's getting rich and buying everything. He had his fingers in every kind of business interest at the time. And it just blew my mind that he was doing stuff in Peru.
Absolutely. In 1900, the McCunes decided to build their mansion. The McCunes wanted their house up on a hill, so they had a view of the city and the LDS temple.
And I believe the reason why we have these two different views wasn't just because they both were like, oh, wouldn't it be great to see both? Alfred wanted to see the city because of all of his business, and Elizabeth was very religious, so she wanted to make sure she could see the temple. So he was kind of catering to her taste there, too.
Both Alfred and Elizabeth had diverse tastes, and they had toured Britain. So when it came to designing a home, they wanted to explore a variety of styles. They sent the architect they had chosen, S.C. Dallas, on a 2-year tour of America and Europe to study different techniques. In the end, the design was Gothic Revival with East Asian influence, and the exterior was shingle style. The exterior was made from Red Butte Canyon sandstone and featured a conical turret and oval portico, and they spared no expense with the interior of the house. Material was brought in from literally everywhere in the world. There was mahogany from San Domingo, red roof tiles from the Netherlands, oak from England, onyx from Utah, and a rare white-grained mahogany from South Africa. An enormous broad wall mirror was transported from Germany, and other walls were covered in Russian leather, moire silks, and French tapestries. The fireplaces were made from Nubian marble.
And this house is like a replica of a house that they saw in New York that was this bungalow. So when you see the two of them, you're like, oh yeah, they do look very similar to each other. So they kind of got the idea from another house that they'd seen in New York City.
But a mansion versus a bungalow, a little bit different in size.
Yeah, it was just interesting when I was reading everything, when it was talking about the house in New York was like bungalow. And I'm like, I guess for New York City, it's considered a bungalow. So I think it was smaller than this house for sure. When the house was finished the following year at a cost of $1 million, and that's at the beginning of
That
the
was 1900 money.
Yeah. It had running water, 21 rooms, and 3 floors. The first floor had an octagonal reception room with embossed figures on the ceiling. It's very cool looking. I'll see if I can get some pictures to put up for you. A large dining room, a sitting room, a main hall with an exquisite fireplace and mantel, and I know I have a picture of that I'm definitely putting up for you guys. I can't even describe it. It's so gorgeous. Tea room and drawing room. There was also a hidden room under the grand staircase where musicians could play music for parties. The second floor had bedrooms and a glorious central hall with stairs leading up to what is today a boardroom. The third floor's 2 ballrooms are something to behold, with their marble columns and plush round sofas, arched openings, painted ceilings, and gold-colored accents everywhere. There are huge mirrors, balconies, and alcoves. Several types of wood were used. A German craftsman spent 8 months making the furnishings from an artificial marble. The third floor also has what is called a hunting room that was styled in English Renaissance and based on Haddon Hall in England. The walls have woodland and hunting scenes painted on them. And the walls are all mahogany, so it's got a very dark look to it. So it's a very masculine space. But one of the pictures I saw online, because this is now a wedding venue, is a woman in her bridal gown. And it looks really cool in there.
Neat. Nice juxtaposition.
Yeah.
The mansion was perfectly designed for parties, and the McCunes loved to host them. Elizabeth enjoyed entertaining friends. Alfred would have political allies come to the house for meetings in the dining room. Special occasions were observed, particularly holidays. The couple raised their family for the 20 years they lived in the house, and then they decided to move further west, all the way to Los Angeles. Rather than sell their dream home, they decided to donate it to the LDS Church. The church accepted the gift and planned to give it to the church president, Heber J. Grant, to use as a personal residence. Grant wasn't crazy about the idea because the place was just too ornate for him. The cleaning alone.
I mean, come on. Who wants to upkeep that kind of thing?
The church decided to open the LDS School of Music in the mansion. The name changed in 1924 to the McCune School of Music and Art. The school offered junior college-level courses in music and dance and was accredited by the National Association of Schools of Music. The administration of the school decided to expand and refocus in 1942, and the music school became a preparatory school for junior high and high school students. Brigham Young University absorbed the school as a branch in 1952. The problem with that is that BYU couldn't get it accredited. so the university let it go. By 1957, the school had been closed by the Church Board of Education.
The LDS Church held on to the house until 1972 when they sold it and it reopened as Virginia Tanner Modern Dance School. Virginia Tanner was known as America's children's dance teacher. So if you are a dance mom and you want to know some history about dancing, you need to know this woman's name, Virginia Tanner. I mean, it goes back quite a ways, but if you're a dance mom, come on. Her parents started her in ballet early, but she didn't like the formal dance. She was a free spirit, and her father encouraged her freestyle dance. Her mother made her black bloomer so that her movement was free. Can you imagine? She's probably just out there in the front yard.
I love it.
Just free-flowing. She's got her black bloomers blowing in the wind. Virginia studied dance with many famous teachers, and she taught for Doris Humphrey in New York. When she returned home to Salt Lake City in the 1940s, she directed the dance department at the McCune School of Music and Art. She organized the Children's Dance Theater in 1949. Tanner became well known and was invited to conduct workshops on children's dance throughout the country, and in the 1970s, the National Endowment for the Arts asked her to direct a pilot program for children's dance in school districts in 5 states. Tanner had a rare gift for teaching and inspiring children with dance. She passed away in 1979. At the school in the mansion, the girls wore white Ginny dresses. Do you know what those are?
I do not.
I didn't either, so I had to look them up. They're basically like the dress Wendy wore from Peter Pan.
Oh, okay.
So these skirts flowed, making them perfect for the kind of freestyle dance that she would teach the girls to do.
Gotcha. Through all of this, the house wasn't refurbished, and it was deteriorating. The school moved out in the 1990s, and Philip McCarthy bought it in 1999. He was a shareholder of the Kearns Tribune Corp., which published the Salt Lake Tribune. McCarthy got several family members to partner with him, and they set to renovating the mansion. They had plans to open a wedding and reception venue, and they did just that in 2001, and that is what it remains today. A carriage house on the property had been designed by architect Henry Monheim and built for Judge R.N. Baskin in 1872 to go with his mansion. Baskin's mansion was raised when the McCunes built their mansion. It was remodeled in 1926 and used as a Mormon meeting house. It was refurbished with the mansion by McCarthy.
And every time I see the name Baskin, I think of Carol Baskin.
I do too. That's why it gave me pause for a second.
Not that one.
Hey, all cats and kittens.
Oh my God.
Isn't that what she would say?
Something like that. He's still in jail, isn't he?
I think so. I don't know.
I think he was asking President Trump to give him a
pardon
or something. He's like, no.
And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors.
Ghost stories have been told about the house ever since the McCune family moved out. That room under the stairs that once hosted music orchestration still has the sounds of musical instruments coming from it on occasion. And when we say there's like a room under the stairs, I was picturing literally, you know how they have those little doors that are under the stairs?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually next to the stairs. There's a door there, and I haven't seen what's behind that door. But so it's almost like it's its own room that's kind of next to the stairs, and maybe it goes in under the stairs, but it's not right under the stairs.
Despite it being described that way.
Yes. And there are people who claim that shortly after the music school moved in, music was heard coming from the house in general, and so all different rooms, at times when classes weren't in session and no one was in the mansion. So some of the spirits that were in there went, hot diggity, we've got some playing instruments, let's go. We're doing a little band practice when nobody was there. Furniture moves around on its own, as do other objects. The lights turn on and off on their own. Doors unlock themselves and disembodied voices are heard. It's believed that there are 2 specific spirits here. The first belongs to Alfred McCune. He is seen as a full-bodied apparition wearing a long black coat and sometimes a cape. I haven't seen him in any pictures wearing that outfit, so I don't know exactly why they think it's him. He, however, does have a very distinctive face because he had this really thick, bushy mustache. So I haven't heard this full-bodied apparition being described with this kind of a mustache. So I'm not sure how they're getting that it's him, because to me it seems strange that Alfred would come back to a house that the family had left in 1920. But maybe he really just was attached to it because they put so much love and creation and money and everything into it.
Perhaps. The other spirit belongs to a young girl, and no one is sure who she is. We checked the death records on McCune's 3 daughters, and they all lived into adulthood with all of them passing in the 1960s. The little girl is said to resemble a portrait hanging in the house, which makes us wonder if she's attached to the portrait.
And I've heard that this is a portrait of ballerinas.
Interesting. Mirrors are really her thing, and this house is full of them. People have claimed to see her walking in and out of a mirror in the western part of the mansion. Her full-bodied apparition has joined a few weddings, and she is seen laughing and dancing, and she has appeared in a couple of wedding photos. A little ghost bomb, if you will.
Hey, she just wants to be a part of the festivities.
Sounds like she has fun.
Yeah.
Her footprints have also been seen in several rooms.
Which is not really a big deal, except
they will just start or end in the middle of a room.
Yeah, sounds like, okay, how did whoever did that pull that one off? An interesting story was told by the McCarthy family. They were celebrating Christmas in the mansion shortly after they bought it. This was the first time that Christmas had been celebrated in the house since the McCunes moved out in 1920. Somebody from the McCune family might have been excited about this because the ballroom lights kept popping on and off. The McCarthys called an electrician a few days later because they figured something was wrong with the wiring. And they were like flipping the lights that were there in the room with them, and they still were acting erratic. And they're like, what is happening here? The electrician found nothing wrong with the wiring, and he told the family that he'd found a light switch 2 floors down that actually would affect the ballroom lights. I don't know why it was 2 floors down, but he thought, well, somebody was probably playing with that. Except for that the family had no idea that that switch was there, and they were all together when this was happening. So they're like, it wasn't us.
McCarthy told KSL.com that during renovations, an electrician told him that he saw something in the enormous German mirror that is in the drawing room. He was just getting ready to make sure that the electricity was okay when a little girl came out of the mirror wearing white.
Which is the kinds of dresses that they wore in the school that Virginia Tanner ran.
Right. She came out of the mirror, she looked to her left, looked to her right, decided everything was okay, and went back in the mirror. That electrician never came back here to work again.
I'm not surprised.
The Salt Lake Tribune also interviewed Phil, and he told them that several times he's turned off the lights and locked the house up tight and then gotten in his car, looked at the house one last time, and then saw that the lights were on again. He also had sometimes been driving away from the mansion and watched the lights turn off and on in several rooms from the rearview mirror.
You got to imagine he probably gets so exasperated when he gets out of the house and he looks up and the lights are back on again. But it's even worse when you're driving away and you're just watching them bink, bink, bink. They're just saying goodbye.
He's like, forget it.
See ya, Phil.
One of his sons told him that he saw a calm, non-threatening man dressed in a black cape appear. The man watched him and then disappeared.
Was it Batman?
You're silly.
Doesn't he have a black cape?
Yeah, but we were already talking about how McCune is said to possibly wear a black cape. Not Batman, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, what a bummer. I guess we're not going to go there then. So this next story is from the Ghostly Tales of Salt Lake City that was written by Lori Allen, Cassie Ashton, Nanette Guest-Watts, and Kristen Clay. Sandra loved working for the McCune Mansion Event Center. The mansion was breathtaking, filled with rare beauty like an Egyptian marble fireplace, hand-painted ceilings, gold leaf gilding, exquisite murals, and more. It made decorating easy. She put the finishing touches on the table preparations. Suddenly, a loud, long scream disrupted her peaceful moment. Sandra quickly moved towards the terrifying noise and collided with Colleen, another employee. "What's wrong?" she asked. Grabbing Sandra's wrist, Colleen dragged Sandra into the spacious drawing room. On one wall was a large picture of young ballerinas all dressed in white. The girl in front was on her toes. Across the room was a full-sized wall mirror. Colleen pointed at the large mirror and stammered, "I was lighting candles when something caught my eye. I turned and watched a young girl in a flowing white dress come out of the mirror." So this is somebody else who's now seen the same thing. Shaking, she repeated, "She came out of the mirror and then disappeared. I looked around the room trying to find her. She vanished. I could swear that it was the same girl in that picture there." She pointed to the large mural of ballerinas, the one with blonde hair. "It was her, I swear." "Okay," Sandra said, pulling out a chair. "Why don't you sit down for a second and I'll go get you some water." She's probably like, and maybe a couple of Tylenol and, I don't know, some drugs.
A stiff drink.
Yeah, I'll get you some whiskey, man. Colleen muttered to herself, "I don't think it was the lights. Maybe it was. I don't want to believe in ghosts, but what else could it be? It was real. Something was there." Sandra returned with the water and sat down to comfort Colleen. Before she said anything, Colleen burst out, "You act like it's nothing, but something moves things in this house. This place has unseen guests. I'm not making this stuff up. Strange things happen here." Sandra patiently responded, "No one is saying you're making anything up. I believe you." "You do?" said Colleen. Sandra continued, "I do. Not everyone is sensitive enough to experience what is here. I wait before I say anything because I don't want to freak people out. Yeah, there are unseen guests. The first sightings came shortly after the music school opened." So I don't know if this little girl in the white dress coming out of the mirror was seen way back then too. But yeah, so I mean, there's multiple people that are seeing this. It just is fascinating to me that the picture is across from the mirror. So first you could say, okay, maybe you're just having some kind of a illusion.
Visual thing.
Yeah. But then when you physically are seeing something out of the mirror and you're looking around the room going, did it come out of the mirror and it's wandering around the room? I would love to know if there was footsteps after that. That would be even better. But yeah, so it's pretty crazy, and it does make you wonder again, spirits can get trapped in mirrors. Clearly she's able to get out of the mirror, and if she is whatever this thing is on the picture across the wall, is that why she seems like she's coming out of the mirror? Because we don't know how any of this stuff works. Or is it something just imitating, like a spirit that isn't really a little girl, but it's imitating what it's seeing across the room?
Could be.
I have so many questions, and after all these years, they're not answered. I was watching a YouTube video, and it was parts of the actual tour. I think it's Grim Ghost Tours that gives the ghost tours here in Salt Lake City. And the tour guide was telling the story about one year, there was a woman who lived across the street at the Kensington. So she came over to the ghost tour guide the one night and said, "I see you guys out here all the time, and I've been wanting to tell you this story." There was this night that she was outside on her balcony talking to a friend on the phone, and she saw a man on the stairs who started walking down the stairs, and about halfway down, he just disappeared. And for those of you who don't know, we'll put pictures up on Instagram. There is quite a large flight of stairs that you have to go up from the street level to get up to where the house is up on the hill. So she's seeing this figure coming down those stairs, probably not thinking anything of it. It's somebody who works there. Maybe they have a wedding going on, because she's seeing all kinds of stuff going on over there. And then he just boom, is gone. And you can imagine she's talking to her friend on the phone. She probably just went, "There was a guy. He was just there. He's gone. He just disappeared." Her friend's probably like, "Have you been drinking?" She wouldn't go out on her balcony after that. A person on another one of the ghost tours was taking pictures of the house. And in one of the pictures in a second floor window on the left, there's a figure. And no one was in the mansion at the time.
On the last episode, we talked about Masons. Well, Joseph Smith had a great interest in Masonic knowledge, and it is said that the early Mormon pioneers followed the 42nd parallel in the United States to get to Utah. There are those who believe this is a ley line. On top of that, it is said that Brigham Young laid out Salt Lake City along ley lines. The Great Salt Lake is said to be a vortex. We don't know if any of that is true, but the McCune Mansion in Utah certainly seems to have some strange things going on inside of it. Is the McCune Mansion haunted?
That is for you to decide. Such a cool looking house. That shingle style on the outside, you don't expect to see it on something that's a Victorian styled house. We'd love to have you guys check out our website at historygoesbump.com. And if you'd like to send us some feedback, you can do that at historygoesbump@gmail.com. We did hear from our listener, Gina, and she is an executive producer. So Kelly, not only does she get the episode without commercials, but they also get it a day early. She said, years ago, at least 20 years ago or so, I had the opportunity to tour the Houghton Mansion. My boyfriend at the time and I walked about a mile in and back of the Hoosac Tunnel. During the tour of the mansion, there were parts of the house that I felt odd and the hair on my arms would stand on end. In the Hoosac Tunnel, we were actually hearing whispers when we went about a mile in it. It was very odd, as it would seem impossible to have sound coming from anywhere, as we were way down into the mountain at that point.
Interesting.
I told her I believe it because, 200 people supposedly died in there. Something's got to be haunting that tunnel. And I believe when Ghost Adventures visited, they did go into the tunnel and they had some interesting stuff happen in there. And then Amy messaged us, I know you two believe there's more to do with synchronicity than mere coincidence. I've had many coincidences during my 54 years, but this is freaky crazy. I listened to another podcast called New England Legends, and I've listened to a couple dozen of them, and they're fun. But today I found out they have a series on Amazon Prime, so I got home from work and thought, I'm going to catch an episode. So I get in my comfy clothes, settle with my dogs, and turn on Season 1, Episode 1. And I'll be damned, the first episode is on the Houghton Mansion and the Freemasons. And you know what's interesting about that? And you know what's interesting about that? We didn't have to feature the Freemasons. We would have just been like, oh, and the Masons bought it and then built their temple behind it. And then, they don't own it now. But the fact that I decided to do, let's do the history of the Masons too, a little bit on that. So that is kind of weird. My mind is officially blown. I'm speechless. Anyway, you guys may have covered this on today's episode because I was getting ready for work this morning while I was listening. I may have missed it. But did you know that Mr. Houghton was a Freemason as well? And no, we did not. So thanks for sharing that, Amy. And there you go. That makes sense as to why the Freemasons acquired that house. That's probably why he worked it out that way. We want to thank you guys for joining us on this episode. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by our executive producers.
Be sociable. Drop the chain rattling, neck biting, and shape shifting. And join us on Facebook and Twitter at History Goes Bump. Like the page and follow us.
Running a twist.
A twist?
Huh.
The exterior was made from Red Butt Canyon sandstone. I always say that.
Red butt.
It's a monkey butt.
Why did they call that canyon red butt?
It's a baboon butt.
What does it look like?
Baboon butt.
And then Amy messaged us, okay, I know you two believe there's more to do with synchronicity.
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 Schnossity.
It's the way that the upper crust say synchronicity. It's synchronicity.
If people could see your mouth and your face as you're saying it like that.
My little pinky sticking up. And my cup of tea.